in my life for a long time. So especially because of the digital disruption aspects, the fact that technology changes markets, it changes customers, it changes how we do things. Disruption gets amplified when we move into a crisis. So now we don't have just the normal digital disruption that we always have in the PEO space we've been looking at for a number of years. We now have a disruption of a crisis where things will not go back to being the same. They just absolutely will not. So let's just look for a second at some of what is happening as far as being disrupted. There's a way that I would like you to think about this. I mean, first of all, this is a black swan event, as we know. And if you read that book, you know what a black swan event is. Something that we couldn't predict. Maybe some people argue we should have been able to predict a pandemic like this, or I should say more clearly, a response like this, because we've had a number of pandemics. We just haven't had a response like this. Never have we chosen around the world to shut things down and have people restricted to their homes and shut down entire industries. I mean, we've never chosen to respond this way. And because we're future point of view and because our mission in the world is to try to help people see in the future accurately, we've been, of course, doing a lot of research and giving a lot of thought. In fact, doing a lot of polling and a lot of research about what will never be the same and what's happening. I like to think of this as a reset, as opposed to thinking of this as the COVID pandemic of 2020, what a bad year is that? I tend to think of the 2020 more as it's a reset. Specifically, in our case, for the PEO industry, it's a reset of the workforce. And there's obviously some things that are happening that they won't go back to being the same, but we also need to understand, what is this reset going to do? How is it going to disrupt things? So for example, it's very uneven, right? There's an uneven impact across markets, and you probably see that as a PEO. You could have construction companies that really haven't been impacted at all. You could have restaurants that were decimated, and both of those are customers of yours. And so we've seen this interesting thing where products and services, some have become more valuable, and then some have become completely less valuable. We have manufacturers that are having a better quarter than they've ever had. And then we have, again, organizations that are completely shut down. It just bases on what products do you make or what services do you deliver. So it's an uneven market impact, which in some ways, I'm happy about that. In the PEO space, it means that we have some customers that are doing better and some customers that are doing worse, and that ratio just depends on what your customer mix was like. But surely one big reset we have is the unemployment. That's unavoidable, is that unemployment went from historic lows to historic highs in an extremely short amount of time. When we say that this is a black swan event, and we could say it is unprecedented, we are seeing things in the economy. We are seeing things in the workforce we have never seen before. And surely going from, very, very historically low unemployment to historically high unemployment in the matter of a month or 2 months, that's a reset. It means that the workforce is going to change, and it's not going to go back to the way it was before for many different reasons. Now, we also have a lot of organizational restructure. So a lot of organizations either are being forced to reorganize, again, because they're doing better or doing much worse. Or we're talking to a lot of leaders who are consciously reorganizing now just because there's fertile ground to reorganize. So early on when this started, let's say in March, right, when we first really started to get hit heavily, we were interviewing a lot of CEOs, just asking them, what are your thoughts about this? And a high amount of them said, I am going to take this chance to reorganize and to restructure. And so that's something that we're going to see. And then, of course, the work from home. I saved that one to last. You want to talk about the biggest reset in the workforce? It's going to be this work from home model. The fact that we could have any time in the last 5 or 10 years moved to much more of a work from home model, but now it's been forced on us for weeks and weeks at a time. And what that's done is two things. It has helped organizations see that, hey, we can run just fine this way. We can trust people to work from home. So it's taken off a bit of the pressure of, hey, no, everybody's got to come to an office for 5 days. And then on the other side of that, we have many people in the workforce who said, I like working from home. I don't like commuting. This saves the commute. I'm saving a lot of money. I don't have to get dressed up. I don't have to do dry cleaning. I'm getting more work done. I have a better quality of life. I have more time with my family. Now, that's not everybody. There are some people that are saying, I can't wait to get back to the office. I cannot be home alone because they live alone and it's just too lonely to work from home. Or they have 4 or 5 kids, maybe young kids, and so they can't wait to get back to work just to have a little bit of escape from all the kids. But work from home is going to be completely different. And I'd like to expand on that a little bit with you just for a second. Because this is going to lead into one of the things that I think you could really do for your clients that would be helpful. And I'll give you that when I get the list, but you need to understand what I'm going to tell you now to understand what I'm going to tell you could do to be helpful. So what we believe is going to happen is that every organization is now going to break into one of these 5 work from home models. So you can take a look at them for a second. I'll explain them, but we don't believe many organizations will go back to being the same as they were before. In fact, I told you we've been doing some research. And so in the polling that we started to do last week, 75% of leaders that we polled said that they did not believe that the organizations were ever going to go back to normal. So a huge percentage said they just won't. I will tell you also the 25% who said things might go back to normal, it's because they already had some work from home. So what we're seeing is almost anyone that we talk to says they do not believe that they will go back to the way they were before. Exactly. So 5 different models they could go to. Full work from home. Smaller businesses, they may be able to pull this off. You're not going to see it with really big businesses. But you can see it with small, maybe even up to medium size, where virtually everyone works from home. Then the partial work from home. In other words, let's think of a manufacturer. It's like the people who work inside the manufacturing plant, they have to be on site. But a lot of the office workers, they could work from home. Marketing could work from home. Accounting could work from home, right? So that's a partial work from home model. The people who can work from home will. Then an optional work from home. We let people choose. If you want to work from home, you can work from home. You just have to give us some idea how you're going to do it. And by the way, when we say optional, you can work from home 5 days a week, 3 days a week, right? So optional work from home is we change our office space around. Not everybody gets an office anymore. It's more of a hoteling situation. And we let people optionally decide. The next one down is an HR-driven work from home. You get a certain amount of work from home days a year. This is on top of PTO. Okay, this has nothing to do with PTO. You're still working, it's just that you can choose to work from home. So for example, we might give Weston and Corey 30 days, right? And they can choose which 30 days through the year. They can only take 10 days, right? But they can't take more than 30, but they can pick which 30 days they want to work from home. And then the last model is a scheduled work from home model, where we say you have to be in the office on Mondays and Wednesdays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, you can work from home, right? Or it could be you have to be in the office Mondays and Fridays and Wednesdays, right? It's just scheduling it so that everybody is together at least some days during the week, but the rest of the time we can be apart. So 5 different work from home models. So it's important, I think, that you have this picture, because when you're giving advice to your customers, your clients, you're going to be able to talk to them about these 5 different models that they could move to. And I'll give you more information of what I think you could do to be helpful here in a second. All right. Disruption in general. I just want to make a comment about this. I love the Chinese character, right? Weiji, right? Which is basically the character for crisis. And if you look at that character for crisis, it's made up of 2 kanji characters. And we've all, well, most of us have heard this before, but I always think about this in times of crisis or in times of disruption. That the two characters that they put together thousands of years ago, one was danger, and then the other one is opportunity. And it's the opportunity that I think we need to focus on right now. I know here at Future Point of View, in February, we started talking about the fact that when a crisis hits, there's only two kinds of companies. There's those who get through the crisis and they're better off than they ever were. And then there's those who are either destroyed and don't come back, or they're crippled by what happened. It's one or the other. And a lot of it has to do with hustle, with how fast you hustle, how hard you work, how innovative and creative you are during the crisis. Because mentally, what happens is organizations either they cower and step back from a crisis and hide and go to sleep and take a vacation, right? Wait for it to be over. Or you're working harder than you've ever worked. We were talking about it here this morning that I was feeling like, man, I need a vacation. And I was saying, isn't it odd that I need a vacation in an era where we had all this work from home? But I've probably put in more hours and worked harder since February than I had the few months before that. Because we absolutely believe that at Future Point of View, we've got to prosper our way, work our way through this disruption. So we're learning to do things in a very different way. Just like you're seeing me present right now, weatherman style, right? I mean, we don't present like a lot of people present. We try to do things in a different way. We're learning. So that is all to say that I think there are a number of things that a PEO can do now to separate themselves from other PEOs, but also just to create value in the mind of your customers. So let me share a few of those with you. Here are 5 things that I guess the best way I could say this to you is if I owned a PEO, these are 5 things I would have done back in February. Certainly you have a chance to do some of them now and have value, right? The first one is be a provider of accurate information. With this pandemic has probably been the absolute worst example of true information getting out that I've ever seen in my lifetime. Corey and I were talking the other day about this is the first real worldwide crisis that we've had during the social technology era. He was making that point. And I think that's right. You know, we've had social technology, but really if you go back to the economic crisis in 2008, we didn't have the kind of social technology we do today, and that wasn't even worldwide, right? This is the first worldwide crisis where we had social media. And I would love to say social media has been the problem with accurate information, but it's not the only problem. Our general media has been horrible, horrible. And I think you all know what I'm talking about. I mean, you cannot turn on TV or read an article and have any hope that what you're reading might be true. We hear completely opposite things from somewhat credible news sources. So one of the things people are hungry for is accurate information. If I just picked one thing, like the PPP program, right? PPP, that is something that is changing almost daily. And anybody who is using that program, which is a lot of your clients, obviously, they're struggling to try to figure out things like, well, what is going to be the tax implications? Are they going to make us deduct the money that we got in the PPP program? And so every day that information changes. And it means a lot to companies what the truth is. But one of the things that you can do from here on out, but from now on in any crisis, is immediately say for our customers, we're going to become the best source of accurate truth for them. And that means you have to work hard to try to discern what are the best sources of information and filter it for your clients so that they start to depend on you for accurate information, because that shows a lot of value from the PEO. Second thing, I'm going to show you examples of this one, but you can now, from now for the next 3 to 6 months, you could provide emergency work from home playbooks. So this is going to happen again. We're going to have a pandemic again. We're going to have emergency work from home situations again. It is good to learn our lessons and be prepared. Most organizations, they were not prepared for this emergency work from home event. You can provide a huge amount of value by taking your clients and customers, and you could charge them for this or do it for free, but you can help them have emergency work from home playbooks so that they can follow the playbook next time. And again, I'll show you examples of this one here in a second. All right, second thing you could do is you could have a work from home configurator. So a work from home configurator, I showed you what the 5 models are. What you can do is have a spreadsheet that basically takes all the employment census data from your client and then allows them to choose those work from home models and play with the numbers and see what the impact would be. How much money might it save them? What kind of employee happiness might they create? How might it impact the environment? There's all kinds of impacts of work from home. And so if you would create a configurator that you could sit down proactively with your clients and say, hey, let us help you run some models on what would happen if you moved more towards work from home. That's going to be a huge benefit. Now, again, if you need help with something like that, we're building that configurator right now. So we're going to have it and we're going to use it to just help any clients who want some help. So if you can't build that configurator on your own, you can always reach out to us and we'll talk about how we can help you with that. All right, be proactively helpful. Again, there are 2 kinds of companies, right? There's 2 kinds of PEOs in a crisis, those who are proactive and those who are reactive. And it makes a huge difference about how people feel about you at the end of the day. When a crisis happens, okay, any crisis, move to immediately become very proactive. Proactive with how you communicate and getting information out. Proactive with being clever about new types of services that you could provide to them, whether you're charging them for them or not. Like these 2, providing emergency work from home playbooks and a work from home configurator. These are examples of being proactively helpful, right? They don't even know to ask you for these things. You show up with them. And then the last thing is, work a little bit on building a crisis capability, just a general crisis capability at your PEO. So we should always learn lessons from things like this. Again, this will happen again. There are always crises. This one happened to come up very fast. In the future, when things come up very fast, what is your crisis capability? What mode does your PEO move into to immediately recognize there's a crisis and now we need to help our clients? That crisis could be weather related, crisis could be disaster related, or pandemic related. Okay? But when there is a crisis in your city or in your region, how do you go into a crisis mode and what kind of crisis capabilities do you turn on to now be able to help your clients? So 5 things I would do if I were in your shoes. Let me just try to show you a little bit of an example so you see what I mean by this work from home playbooks. I'm not going to show you every page of the playbook, but you'll get an idea. Right? A playbook is a series of pages that helps a client understand what are all the moves you make in response to, in this case, an emergency work from home event. Now, we've figured out there are 3 different emergency work from home events. A health related, which is a pandemic or could even just be flu in your building, right? But a health related event, a weather related event, or a disaster. The building catches on fire or there's a terrorist activity, right? A disaster. Any one of those 3 could cause an emergency work from home event. So there needs to be a playbook for each of these 3. Now I'm just going to show you just a quick sample of what a health playbook looks like. So in other words, you could take what I'm getting ready to show you and you could put your name on it and tweak it for what you believe. And you could then give these to your clients, or you can charge your clients to customize these for them. Now there's 2 pieces to the playbook. There's the engagement, which is how do we start the work from home program? And then there's the disengagement. How do we bring people back? And it's different for each of the playbooks, each of the 3 responses, right? But let's just look at health, and I'll show you what it looks like. So there is a page that basically talks about what is this, all right? So the description, are there any variations? What departments need to play? And this is where you would be customizing it for your smaller clients because they may not have all these departments, right? what the update requirements are, so how often you're going to update this emergency work from home event, right? So you just have a page that explains this. Then you go into the first 24, right? The first 24 is just as it sounds. It's, you know, basically by hour, what are we going to do in the first 24 hours when we have to declare an emergency work from home event? Now, this might happen to you very quickly because there's a state or a federal law that says you've got to send everybody home. But if it's a weather event or a disaster, it's going to happen very quickly because something happened immediately or is getting ready to happen. So in the first 24, all this page does is it just kind of shows you who has responsibilities and what are those responsibilities. And in this case, because it's a health event and it's emergency work from home, the green outline means HR owns this. So they own the responsibility of making sure the first 24 hours goes well. Now, I'm not going to go through all the icons that you see over my head, right? The icons all mean something when you look at a playbook. Let's look at a full event action grid. So here is the full playbook step by step, right? So you can see, you know, how do we prepare? How do we even prepare for emergency work from home? How do we pre-stage? How do we activate the work from home program? What's our communication plan? How do we do the actual transition? Right? How do we monitor what the rollout is, how it's going, right? How do we look at the continuing operations? What are the lessons we learned? Because you always want to look at lessons learned. And you can see we got lots of different departments. Again, this is just a generic one built for an organization that would have these departments. If you have a smaller client, you can go ahead and collapse some of these. But the idea is to have an action plan by department, by stage. What's everything you need to make sure you do in an emergency work from home event? All right, the disengagement looks a lot the same. So when you go to do the disengagement, you just turn it around. Now we're deciding it's time to go back to work, or we're going to start bringing people back into the office. And so there's a lot of things that you need to do here. And so again, HR owns this as well. And we start in the first 24 to talk about what are the immediate things we need to make sure we've dealt with. And then we go to almost the reverse, an action plan that says, okay, right? We now know that it's time to initiate the return policy. We assess the current situation. We determine the operating point, right? What's the communication plan to tell everybody what we're going to do and get them back? You know, each of these boxes, the colors mean things. The red means it's a moment of truth. Right? It's something you have to absolutely get right when you're doing this playbook. So I'm just trying to give you an example, right? This is just if you've ever done disaster recovery or business continuity, if you've ever done cybersecurity, right? Event response and cybersecurity, that's what these are. These are playbooks that tell you in detail what to do. The reason that I think it would be so valuable for you as a PEO to have your standard playbook and then to be able to give these to your clients, or again, you know, sell the service to your clients, they won't do this. They're busy with lots of other things. But this would be a huge gift that you could give them. And it shows that you are innovative. It shows that you're being proactive and that you're thinking about their welfare for next time. All right. Let's move into the discussion time, and I just want to close up with this one thought. For those of you who love Matrix, and I love Matrix, and my favorite character actually in Matrix was Morpheus. When I grow up and get older, I want to be Morpheus. I want to be that wise but extremely cool guy, right, who can help the world and help humanity. I love Morpheus. Now, Morpheus had a lot of interesting quotes. This is one of his quotes. There's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. This is what I find in a crisis, and it's true for you, you know, at a PEO, it's true for any organization, is you have to get out and execute, right? You might know that in a time of disruption that you need to be innovative. You might know in a time of disruption that you need to be proactive, that you need to get out there and really help your client. You might know that that's the best path, but man, there is a difference between people, leaders who know this, and leaders who are doing this. And I just hope you would be a leader that takes some of these ideas or comes up with some of your own and get out there proactively and show them how high value the relationship with you as a PEO can be, even if it's not driving a bunch of revenue for you right now. If it's at least tightening a relationship that will only get stronger after this, that's great. Let's at least get that done. All right, I'll stop there.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's move to some questions, Ryan.
Thank you, Scott. So everybody who is on right now, as you can tell, I'm going to, in just a moment, give you the ability to unmute your own microphone. The process for getting a question to Scott and getting it answered is usually best if you go down to the participants icon at the bottom of your Zoom. You'll see that it says participants with a couple of heads there. You click on that, you're going to then see a raise hand function as one of our guests on the right-hand side. So if you want to ask a question, the best format is for you to raise your hand, and then I will call on you, and then you can unmute yourself. If you would rather send in the message via chat, you're welcome to do that, both Scott's side and mine. We can both see the chat pane as co-hosts. So I will allow you now to unmute yourselves. And if you have a question that you want to field over to Scott right now, please go ahead and raise your hand, because we want to hear you and we want to see you so that we can all stay out of our quarantine bubbles that we have found ourselves in. Okay. I had one question come in here, and I will say that, yes, not everybody who's on the call today is a PEO owner. And so some of you are coming in from operations, some of you are coming in from sales and marketing. And so it's good to have you as well, because having these kind of pieces that Scott's talking about will be good to bring forward. I don't see any hands raised yet, but if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask a question, you're welcome to go ahead and do that.
Hey, Scott, Jim Grimm.
Hello.
Come on, buddy. It's been a long time.
It has.
You know, probably the biggest frustration, I think, on our end, and me personally anyway, you talked about misinformation. It's really determining who has the best information and finding that correct information. That's the most difficult thing that I deal with. I mean, like you said, you can literally watch 2 news channels simultaneously and get different answers at the same time.
Yeah, my wife ran into some researchers in California that full time now they're getting samples of people saying completely opposite things, you know, or the news media. We have a picture of they showed a picture of a really crowded beach, and they used the same picture in California that they used in Florida, and it probably wasn't a crowded beach from this time or from either of those beaches. I mean, it's just an incredible amount of misinformation. So I hear you, and there's no, I can't give you a really easy magic answer, but I think if you really get discerning about the source, you know, where is this information coming from? You know, I've been able to kind of in my head when I read things all day, start to say, okay, this is somebody who is an expert in their field that I can kind of trust what they're saying. And then in some cases, when I've got completely opposite opinions from 2 trusted sources, you know, then I almost have to start balancing, all right, well, how many people are saying this thing versus this other thing? So it is really difficult. I will say this, when I talk about what will never be the same, I don't think it'll ever be this bad again. I think the next 6 months, we're going to look at how horrible the information was during this. And we're going to figure out as a society how to define, all right, what can we listen to? You know, what really is going to be the truth. But in the meantime, I am finding that, I'll give you an example. I've been able to figure out that there's one accounting firm, Eisner Ampner, if you're familiar with Eisner Ampner. So when I look through information being published, Eisner Ampner's information, for instance, on the PPP program or the SBA, I have found it to be more accurate and more well thought out than most other things that I'm reading. And so, you know, I tend to lean towards, okay, I believe what Eisner Ampner says. And that's the best I think you could do at your shop, is try to find the sources that you believe in the most, and then filter those sources a bit for your clients, and not add to the cacophony, because you don't want to add to it, but try to be a good filtering source. But man, it has been horrible. It really has.
Sounds like this is an opportune time for rivers of information, Scott.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those of you who know what a huge fan I am of the concept of a river of information, it's not only having a river, it's having a river from trusted sources. And I don't know if any of you have done this. I have heard from so many executives that they have stopped listening to the news. Again, I've never heard that many say to me, I've just stopped, because I figured out about 30 days into this, it was a waste of my time, because one news source would say this and one news source would say this, so why listen? And so they're trying to figure out other ways to be able to glean what the truth is, like the truth with a capital T. But I've never heard so many people say, I've just stopped reading or listening to the news because I can't trust it.
Thank you, Jim, for your question. Will, you're up. Let's go ahead and get you unmuted.
I think he just answered my question number one, is what are you using for sources? And since everybody is kind of staying away from the news, I agree with totally what you just said, Scott, is that from day one, I realized then whatever is really going on out there, the news definitely has its own agenda. So that was my question one, is what are you using for sources? And two, I would love to see you do a poll of this group and say, are you in favor of opening? And three, are you jumping on the fear bandwagon, or are you going against the grain? Being a true disruptor, saying, hey, let's recover.
Yeah. Well, you said three different things, and so let me just comment on those.
Sorry, I'm
no problem.
Multifaceted.
It's just at my advanced age, can I hold all three in my head, right, and answer them?
Yeah, you're what?
So on your first, on sources, what I changed to is I do not pay attention to anything in social media, and I pay attention to nothing in the general media. I only listen to analysts or associations, right? I'm only listening to analysts, associations, or experts in a field. That's what I've reduced my river to. So I don't waste any time at all listening to general media. I just don't. And I don't pay any attention to anything on social media. And, normally I will look at those, but now that I've filtered those out, I feel like I'm getting a much clearer sense of things. So that's what I did as far as sources. As far as the poll of how people feel, I'll leave that to Ryan, but I do think it's really good to get a lot of data right now on how people are feeling. We're doing a lot of that, by the way. When I'm there in June and I do the What Will Never Be the Same, I'm going to be able to share a bunch of research numbers with you about what leaders believe will never be the same. I'll be able to tell you, like 70% of leaders say this will never be the same, and here's what they think. So we'll have some of that. The last thing that you said about the being disruptive by getting back to business, I hate to say, I don't want to be judgmental. So anything that I say that's right for me, I'm not trying to say it's right for everybody. But I will say for me, we got back to business as soon as we could. But I'll also tell you, like Weston and Corey and I, we've been down at the office videoing and trying to put out information to help people ever since February. So, we've always been in the office because we had a lot we could do to help clients and to help people. And so we just decided to keep coming in and keep shooting this video. Now, some of the rest of our team worked from home, but we were always partially working from here. And then last week, we just went back to, people working here. Now, we got a couple people that'll wear masks here. We try to be respectful of space, but, we have clients that are already asking if they can meet with us in person. And if they want to meet in person, we will. So I think my personal opinion is you cannot cower in the face of crisis. I'm a big believer in Winston Churchill, right? I'm a big believer in you never quit, and you got to get back to business. And yes, I know that somebody could catch COVID, and yes, I know, the dangers that could be there, but I don't know. My personal opinion is we have had pandemics for a lot of our lives, all of our lives, and we never responded this way. And I'm okay that we responded this way and that we want to save lives right now. But I think there's a fine line between panic, and creating panic in the marketplace, and then doing things that are respectfully intelligent. And so I don't want to be somebody that is winding up the panic. I really don't.
Looks like 88% of people are ready to open now. Just as
I like that. That's a good poll result. And that's what I've been seeing in our webinars too, is that business people, who I assume everyone is here, is we're ready to, let's, we can't let the cure be worse than the disease. Let's move forward. Thank you for your time, Scott. I appreciate it.
No problem.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I do have a question that came in from Richard. Before I ask it, because I think it might be a good segue, Scott. Corey, at one point you had unmuted and looked like you were about ready to queue up for a question. Would you like to go ahead and share what's on your mind with Scott?
Sure. Thank you, Ron. Thanks again, Scott.
No problem.
On the work from home, interested for PEOs, a lot of clients, excuse me, are asking best practices in the form of accountability now. I don't see them at the office physically. And also on that same note, from a security standpoint, we used to have the IT in the office. How do we make sure that still is performing at home and not losing that efficiency?
So two good questions. On the first question, one of the first things we did at FPOV was we did a series of videos like this live that were all on the 10 best practices for leading home-based workers. And if you would like that white paper, because we did a white paper real quick on how best to lead home-based workers, and a section of that white paper was on accountability. So you just need to get your email address to me, or get it to Ryan, he can get it to me, and I'll email you. I'll email any of you who want that paper. But it was something we did in February, March, beginning of April, was a series of videos just telling leaders, how do you lead home-based teams? Because leading home-based teams is completely different than leading people at the office. And we had a lot of experience because we had gotten hired by Lockheed Martin a few years ago to actually build all the best practices for leading home-based engineers. And so we already had that content. So we real quickly updated it and put it out to all our clients and put it out to the world. So if you want a copy of that paper, just give me your email. Glad to get you that paper. Specifically, what I would say is there's everything from I'm going to put the technology in that takes a picture of somebody every 2 minutes and tells me what they're doing, or where I'm monitoring what people are doing all day. In other words, the low trust model, to the high trust model, which is really just performance. All I'm going to measure you on is your performance. I'm not going to watch when you're working or what hours or anything else. If you're getting your work done, that's all I ask. There's a big continuum there. And leadership is harder. Leadership is harder when people are remote. It just is. You have to change your communication rhythms. You have to change how you give projects out. You have to give them out in smaller pieces. You have to check in with people more often. You have to have ways to hold people accountable more often. So it's a great question. The answer to it really is the whole leadership model needs to adjust when you are leading a home-based team. And it would be better for you to read the white paper than for me to prattle on and on about all the ways to do that. Your second question was about security. And that's a very good question, because a lot of people don't understand that when you send people home, you weaken your security model. You just do. You give criminals more endpoints to be able to attack you. And so if we were to go back through that document I was showing you real quick, the event management document, right? How you recover from work from home. There's a lot of lines in there on IT, that talk about how to change the security systems when people go home, and then how to change them back when people come back to the office. So that is one of the good things about a playbook, is the playbook gives specific responsibilities to parts of the organization to harden the security when they go home, and then, you know, do whatever you need to do with the security when people come back. Let me just give you a simple example of this. We have a lot of clients that bought laptops or got laptops and gave them to people so they could take laptops home, but they did not disable the USB drives. So now you have laptops connected to your network at people's homes, and their kids are sticking USB sticks in them. You know, they're sticking USB sticks in them, right? And so you've opened up something that you could have controlled on your network, but that you can't control when you send the laptop home. Some of those laptops are now infected, and you're only going to know about it when you bring the laptop back to work and somebody plugs it back into the network, right? It's just simple things like that, that if you don't account for them, you're going to have a security problem.
Excellent.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Corey. Okay, well, I'm going to allow this to, Richard's got a great question that I'm going to allow to be the transition here, Scott. So I'm going to disable your spotlight video now and let you stay on with us as long as you like for the rest of our time. And just to reiterate for everybody, those there were many people who joined in after this comment was made, but you will be presenting different material in June. Before I let you go, before anybody potentially drops off at the top of the hour, what exactly will be the content that you'll be covering at the June conference in Savannah?
I'm going to be doing a mixture of what will never be the same. So coming out of this, what will never be the same. And then also just from a technology viewpoint, especially what will we see with technology through the rest of the year? You know, what will our clients want from us or want more of from us through the rest of the year? So it's going to be a lot, what will never be the same, very kind of flavored towards what has happened with digital transformation through this thing, because it's sped up digital transformation. But there's we've done some really interesting research on what will never be the same after this. And so that's what will be, I'll be presenting.
Awesome. Well, I think it's going to be a very timely conversation, so that we can be the folks that aren't the ones that get buried in all of this, but the ones that really rise up and maneuver around this. I've given everybody your email address, scott@fpov.com. If anybody wants access to the white paper or the materials that Scott's talked about today, or the rivers of information, which I'm still a big advocate for, I think those would be well suited to go over to him. I'll use this moment now to transition over to Kim. Kim Egginton is the communications director here at PACE, and she is going to be facilitating and hosting our peer-led discussion. And we've already got a couple of questions on deck, Kim, for the audience. So I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, it's good to see you all. And Scott was marvelous, as always. Always learn a lot from Scott. I'm going to start with a couple of questions that we've had here, but also have come in through the week because they're very similar. And to do that, I'm going to share my screen here with you just quickly so you have a chance to talk about that, but or think about it before you raise your hand to answer, or you just unmute yourself. But what I have noticed is that week to week through this crisis, things have changed a lot. First of all, I was getting a lot of questions about how do we work with the banks? What are we doing internally? And then all of a sudden, like a magic switch was turned, everybody started going, oh, we really need to focus on sales and marketing here to survive and to thrive. So all of a sudden the questions turned to sales and marketing. And the first one, let me see here if I can get this up, is selling in this COVID-19 work atmosphere. What have been the changes for you, and what have been some of the opportunities? This has come up over and over and over again. Can everybody see? I'm assuming you can see my screen.
We see your screen.
All right,
Yep.
Thanks. Anybody like to speak to that? And I can tell you that some of the questions coming up are kind of spin-offs of this. How are you finding new business? What are the changes? What have the changes been? Are you going out in masks? I mean,
For those of you that want to contribute, you can put it into the chat, which I'm monitoring, or you can unmute yourself. Jim, go right ahead.
You know, one of the things we've done is, like Scott talked about a little bit ago, there are thriving companies and thriving industries right now. And obviously there are those that are just crippled and shut down. So the first thing you do from a sales standpoint is we had all of our salespeople totally stop even any work at all related to the businesses that were crippled and only focus on those that were thriving. And we actually, as a company, are seeing one of the best Mays that we've had in a long time by doing that. Now, we also have, like everybody else, we've got a lot of companies that we've signed up that keep postponing the actual enrollment, the actual onboarding due to the COVID-19. So it's a balancing act for us on dealing with those companies that are viable and at the same time can actually move forward the way we want them to.
okay, thanks. I appreciate you jumping in there. I know what I'm getting from a lot of people is that they have more questions than answers. So it makes a big difference when somebody can jump in and give us some ideas. I'm going to share the next question with you here. So basically, what is working for you, and what processes are you using? I'm going to give you a little bit of an idea of what I've been hearing about, and one thing is looking for companies that are hiring. And a lot of the companies that are hiring are big companies, but we put a list on the LinkedIn, the PACE LinkedIn page, all three of the pages, that link to a list of big companies that are hiring, but it might spark some ideas about smaller companies or companies that are in similar industries that are around you that maybe you haven't thought of before. Anyone want to talk to what's working?
Hey, Kim.
Yeah.
I'll give you an observation just from across all of our clients around the country. Being visible, I mean, just being very visible, more visible, getting your brand to be more visible than it was before, I think is an easy step that you've got to do. Because in a crisis, sometimes companies, they just go invisible. You don't hear from them, right? They just pull back their horns. I think it's real important that you are more visible, more top of mind. That means produce some content you haven't produced before. I'll give you a couple examples here. One of the things we did early on was I created a list of 100 executives who were clients of ours. And I started sending out an email every morning called Modern Churchill. And it was about 2 or 3 paragraphs. And what I did was just I told something historically about Winston Churchill getting through World War II, right, and what he did. And then I gave some modern thoughts about what it takes to get through, a crisis. And I had no idea when I did that email. I promised I would do it just during the danger. And I just want to do this to help uplift you during the danger. The response that we got from that was unbelievable. Like a lot of you know John Slavic. I mean, John Slavic was on it. And, John every, week or so would respond to one of them and make some comments. But I probably had more interaction with executives at clients of ours because of that one email. But we also, like I said, we put out content on how to lead during work from home, how to be a great leader during work from home. Created a white paper. We created videos. We did live videos. We didn't charge for them, right? And we are talking internally. We're talking about how we've probably done more to expand our brand in the last 3 months than we did in the last 3 years. And I think that's what all of you really have to be looking to do. Be very visible so that people see you trying to help, see you trying to share good advice, because they'll remember that. that in a tough time, you were visible.
Okay. Yeah, that's, I have noticed, I'm sure we have all noticed, the companies that have jumped right in there and tried to be helpful, or have been helpful, I shouldn't say just tried to be, as opposed to the ones who have just said, we're there for you, we're cleaning our shop, you know, because we all got 75 of those people that you hadn't seen or heard from in a long time. So what you've done, Scott, is made yourself valuable all along the way by being visible. And it's important that your content is relevant and that you would like to get that content if you were on the other side, right?
Yeah, I can tell you on the other side, I'm friends with Tony Robbins, and Tony Robbins for the first 3-4 weeks of this event kept doing all the normal marketing to come to all his events. And about 30 days in, he started getting some real fury unleashed at him about being tone deaf. And people really started writing, you know, messages and responses to anything that was being posted of, Tony, are you tone deaf? Do you not understand there's a crisis going on? Nobody wants to talk about your events right now. And it took him too long to change where he was delivering content to try to be helpful, right? And I thought it was interesting because I remember specifically the, are you tone deaf? Right? So just sending me an email that says you're cleaning your place and here's what your COVID response is, I could care less. I could care less what your COVID response is. You know, to me, you're being tone deaf. Say something that's helpful to me. You know, that's what I'm looking for.
All right.
It should be a motto for all communications at all times is to communicate something that's relevant and useful and timely to the individual who you're sending it to, and not making it about yourself, but making it about how you are going to make it possible for them to succeed and survive. It's a great point, Scott. Thank you for that.
About being helpful to your clients, if I may comment, it seems like if we do any research at all about what industries are coming back and are growing and are in a positive stance at this point, it would be helpful if we approached all of the smaller support operations for those kinds of industries, finding out who can increase their own business by supporting these growing businesses that they might not be aware of. And if we can help through any kind of marketing support to potential clients, it can help and open the doors for further trust of our interest in them.
Absolutely. David, while you're talking, why don't you address the other question you had about working from home being challenged in the past by workers' comp issues?
Right. Well, many times we've thought about, you know, work from home and as opposed to building new buildings, and even when considering the differences in the younger workforce. And I can remember discussing it as a possible alternative for women, or let's say parents in the workforce that need to take care of children. There was no pandemic, there was no major emergency, but the discussions around working from home included a reluctance because of the workers' comp issues involved. It was concerning people that if somebody was injured at home while working, was it still a work comp event? And there were a lot of those kinds of concern about the litigious community taking action against employers putting people to work at home, accurately accounting for hours worked, the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act implications. Those kinds of things were uh, roadblocks or potholes in the discussion of working from home. And I was wondering if there had been any action or any of these issues addressed in the current discussion of working from home.
Right. Anybody want to speak to that? Has anybody had those workers' comp issues come up?
We definitely have at our company, Kim. We have had a lot of our clients call us and say, okay, I'm paying this rate for this job duty, and now my people are having to work from home, and it's, you know, a 10th or a 5th or a quarter, you know, whatever the case may be. And our work comp provider has in fact allowed an adjustment on the rates and the codes that the people working from home are using right now. So we have been able to do that.
Great, great. Oh yes, having been in sales and marketing and gone out, you know, door to door to these businesses, that's such a huge issue. And they're always saying, well, you know, we have roofers, but they don't really get on the roof, or whatever it is. That's, you know, that shouldn't be our rate. So I can see that they would jump right on that.
Maybe if you could convince them. That hasn't been a successful approach in the past.
Well, I think
No, it never is.
now don't have a choice. They have to not do their normal job. So you can't keep billing them on that higher rate when they're really not being able to do that higher rated work. I think it's the main emphasis there.
Oh, Jim, I understand. My concern was I tripped over the throw rug in the hallway between my office and the bathroom and broke my ankle. Is this a compensable injury? I'm on the job.
Yeah, I think that's going to come up. There's no doubt about it. And we're going to have those claims. I think we're just going to have to deal with them.
And we ought to prepare in our playbook our clients to recognize that this is an issue.
Agreed.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
Kim,
that's one of the things you can be communicating about.
Kim, I just want to touch base real quick on one thing that Scott said earlier, and just kind of give you a quick success story that I experienced, or we as a company experienced. We started months ago putting content together for our clients. You know how that first one is, the first one, and all of us have tried to do lunch and learns and all these different things throughout the years with limited success or no success or great success. It's been all over the board. So the first one we put out, we got a pretty good response because there was a lot of people that really did want information. And then we did the second one, and it was amazing. We were required, as all the sales and marketing team was required, to be on the call. And the day of the webinar, we all got an email saying we could not be on the call because so many people had registered for it. There wasn't room for us to be on there anymore. And that's how that thing grew from the first one to the second one, because of like what Ryan said, you have to, if you give that relevant information that people really can use, and you kind of take the whole, it's not about me, it's just about providing that information. We opened it to any and everyone. My success story was my next door neighbor. I've been trying to sell PEO to since 2010 when I moved in. He's got a little 20-man shop. He's always said his wife does everything. He's not interested. He's not interested. He's not interested. He knocked on my door a couple of months ago, stood in the road, made sure he had plenty of social distance, and started asking me questions about the PPP loans and some other things. I emailed him the information on the webinar, and now we're going to do a proposal on him next month. So I thought that was pretty cool how just having that making sure the information was pertinent turned somebody completely away from the PEO model to now he's very much interested in it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know Laurie shared with us last week, for those of you who weren't on this session last week, that one of her most successful things had been going out and talking to, just seeing who was open, seeing who had cars in the parking lot, talking to construction crews, and looking at companies who she knew had had a reduction in force and now did not have enough employees to meet the insurance levels. And so their insurance was in trouble. Those kinds of things, you know, I'm sure a lot of you have thought of these things. But every week, as you have these successes, come back to us and let us know. Because it is remarkable to me that I've had so many people asking these questions, and only a handful have come up with solutions, at least solutions that they've shared with us. So, you know, let's light a fire under our sales and marketing teams and get them sharing ideas. Are there any other questions? You can put it in chat or just unmute yourself and go ahead and speak. If not, we'll shut this down for today. Hope you're all registered for next week.
And I'll just step in here too, Kim, just to mention that there are some environments that you are currently facilitating where people could have these conversations between these experiences. Sometimes Zoom creates an opportunity for certain people to feel very comfortable here. Other people would prefer to do, you know, text or social. And so if you're a PACE PEO member, I believe you have a PACE LinkedIn group that which is just for members only, as well as an open forum group that is to the entire industry. This is a good place to post your questions and also to try to provide answers or updates as you start to formulate answers to questions. Given the sense of community that is existent in PACE, that would be a very good method to stay in touch with one another between these Thursday experiences.
Yes, it'd be great to get some lively discussions going on there and help everybody that way on LinkedIn. Also, if you absolutely can't be here for the live sessions, you can go to the website. We'll be posting recorded versions of those there. So I am looking forward to seeing you all at the conference. That's what I'm excited about. I'm glad that we're getting together now because the disruption has been severe and we really need each other more than ever. But I can't wait to, you know, point my elbow at you or bump elbows or whatever it is we're going to be able to do in June. I think the hotel industry is going to be opened up a lot more, the restaurant industry. I think we're going to be feeling safer. So be sure to register for that on the website also. It's pacepeo.com. And with that, we'll say goodbye to everybody. We'll see you next week. It's been great.